You're listening to the Betoota Advocates Weekly News Wrap on Desert Rock FM 96.5.
Welcome back to the weekly Betoota Bulletin. You're joined by myself, Clancy Overell, editor of the Betoota Advocate, and of course Errol Park, editor at large. He's vaxxed, waxed, and ready to climax. Unlike some of those people we saw down in Melbourne earlier this week. How you feeling, Errol? How you feeling with that wholesome pharmaceutical bloody joy that's circulating your body?
Well, it's going to allow me hopefully to travel interstate to see my family, after seeing how happy you were that, after you got vaccinated, that meant you'd be able to get up to the Philippines.
Still waiting.
I could see the joy of the prospect of being reconnected was bringing to people, and I thought, why not?
Well, here. If there's ever been a better reason to get vaccinated, I'd like to hear it. How about you, Wendell?
Yeah, pretty good, Clancy. I might just say, Errol, you do have a real spring in your step. It's great to see. But yeah, doing pretty well and doing better than the city of Melbourne this week, I think, which, is probably the case most weeks, but particularly this week, doing better than Melbourne. How about you, Clancy?
Going all right, mate. Going all right again. Yeah, lucky I'm not down there with all the burning flesh and the fucking trams. But, in Queensland, we have our own issues at times. Just certainly don't have them right now.
Because they pale in comparison.
Absolutely, we don't. We don't have that much seismic activity either.
We're about to be sent into turmoil again because the southern states are going into daylight saving.
Yep.
If there was a border bubble, if those bastards could wash their hands, then maybe we'd be able to have a border bubble with them. But the fact that they won't be allowed across the border kind of mitigates the fact that they're going into daylight saving because no one from Queensland will be going there.
No. Well, we're lucky we don't have the seismic activity they do down south, because I tell you what, half of fucking Brisbane is made of chalk, mate. I don't give a fuck.
If there was an earthquake in Brisbane, I reckon the South Bank pools would crack open and people would be sucked out through the crack into the Brisbane River. I don't think that Joe was paying the highest bidder.
No, there'd be a lot of dead fish if that water made its way into the river, I'll tell you that much. Yep. All those fucking backpackers down there with bars of soap fucking each other. That's why they call it the gene pool.
Yeah, there'd be a lot of carp in that Brisbane River with rheumatic fever too, I tell you what.
Yeah, a couple of STIs too, I imagine. Am I right, fellas? Anyway, what's up first in the news this week, Wendell?
Well, we'll start off with the biggest story of the week, and that is 2021 chucks in a few earthquakes for the fuck of it.
Yeah, for the first time in a long time, our nation has experienced a pretty decent earthquake. Of course, we don't forget. We will always remember, never forget Newcastle 1989. But same thing's happened again this week. Slightly more on the Richter scale, I believe, is the measurement we use.
Yes, Richter.
5.8 magnitude. Thankfully, no one was hurt down there in Victoria this week. So people around the country were allowed to revel in the story a little bit. It was felt far west as Adelaide, apparently. The Mansfield quake was the latest in the long list of biblical events that seem to have been set upon the people of Melbourne.
Yes, people like Israel Folau and Margaret Court would probably offer up a theory on that one, I reckon. But this recent disaster comes a short time after the horrific summer bushfires, the subsequent floods that followed, and of course the global pandemic that has apparently crippled our economy, health system and our way of life. The icing on the cake, really.
Been a real couple of years.
Staying down in Melbourne now, and the earthquake damage has seen Premier Dan Andrews begin the gruelling task of trying to mend his relationship with the tradies.
It certainly has been a week for the more developing parts of Australia down there in Victoria. Before that earthquake struck, there was the CFMEU blow-up and the subsequent anti-vax tradie protests in the city. As a result of those incidents and rising cases, Daniel Andrews, the Premier down there, has come out and shut down Melbourne's construction sites for 2 weeks, which was a decision that came back to bite him as quickly as it came.
Yeah, with plenty of rubble on the streets and lots of buildings damaged, the Premier of Melbourne was forced to come crawling back to the yellow and orange-clad people who work in the construction industry. He reportedly had to send a few texts trying to patch things up, and that conversation does make for good reading. I've got it here in front of me. The first text comes through as, "Boys, how we been?" No response. "Haha. Oi, about all that stuff yesterday, hoping we can put that under the bridge." No response. "Anyway, I was just messaging you to see if you're around this arvo. This earthquake has done a job on Chapel Street." I know I said no more construction for 2 weeks, but obs, this is different. And then you there with a few question marks to follow up. Still no response. Leaving me on red there, those boys.
Well, in the wise words of Bob Catter, Wendell, who the fuck cares about Chapel Street?
Staying down in that southern city for our final story from down there. And Melbourne Vinnies have reported an abundance of high-vis donations as conspiracists stop playing dress-ups.
All hands on deck at second-hand clothing outlets across Melbourne over the last couple of days. They say they've been inundated with brand new high-visibility workwear as the conspiracists who spent the last few days pretending to be angry tradies run out of steam.
Yeah, it was a big couple of days, to be fair to them all. After frantically organising protests and spreading misinformation, the right-wing extremists behind the flare-ups down there in Melbourne outside the CFMEU offices decided, apparently, to pack it all up after the earthquake because, of course, a shaking terrace house is even scarier than a tiny little jab. And with no use for the tradie costumes they bought just a few days earlier, they decided to donate them to charity, which was very kind of them.
Probably the most positive contribution they've made for a little while.
To the planet ever.
Yeah.
Anyway.
In politics, and we've got a story about Christian Porter forcing the ABC into a humiliating backdown by resigning to the backbench.
Yeah, the former highest-ranking legal officer in the land sure has shown the public broadcaster this week, because after promising not to, Porter has resigned from the front bench, and that comes a few months after his proclaimed win over the ABC in court, where he dropped defamation proceedings without paying them damages or removing the article from their website.
A huge win, that one.
Just another resounding W over the raging lefties who are asking whether it's appropriate that an Attorney General should just ignore appalling allegations levelled against him. Porter's next battle is now hoping everyone just stops asking questions why someone was paying his legal fees and why they are so adamant on remaining anonymous. What's going on there, Christian? Who was it, Christian? Was it one of your dad's mates? Tell us, mate, it's not a good look.
I think Scotty's hoping that question isn't answered either. And we're going to finish off with some light news from the Channel Country. The headline on it reads, "Report, mate who's found a cheaper ride on his new app can fucking book it then."
This incident took place down at a popular Old City District watering hole mid-session with a group of revellers breaking into a chat about who was ordering a ride to their next drinking appointment. One fiscally conservative mate chimed in with the classic, "Hey, I've got a cheaper one on my new app."
The local barefoot disciple, they're fucking everywhere these days, aren't they, decided to inform his mates that they were pissing their money away, and his Placey app was actually offering up the cheapest ride. So he was told to go for his life and fucking book it then.
Be their guest, apparently. It'd be handy to put the Betoota company card on that, I reckon. Save some coin rather than just do the taxis. Anyway, that's another week in news from us. We look forward to having your company again next time. Bye-bye.
Hooroo!